Hello, thank you for joining us today for Amici Cannis Lunch and Learn. We're so happy to have you here today. My name is Alexandra Roethlisberger, and I'm the Executive Director. I'm joined today by two guest speakers, Dr. Marian and Claire. Dr. Marian is a 2014 graduate of Tufts Veterinary School. She's a small animal veterinarian in Dundee, Michigan. Marian has been to Ecuador twice now as a mentor. She has 2 human kids, a golden retriever, and 3 cats. Claire is a current 4th-year veterinary student at Tufts University. She's originally from Seattle, Washington, and she has always held a deep interest for animals and science. She has worked in a variety of veterinary settings, including wildlife, high-volume animal shelters, in both rural and urban general practice. She's interested in surgery, geriatric care, and community medicine, and will be working at a small animal general practice after graduation. We're joined today by Andrea as well, who is a graduate veterinarian from the University of San Francisco in Ecuador. She is our program coordinator, and she's in charge of the logistics for the veterinary externship program. And hosting this meeting today is our founder and medical director, Dr. Heather Steyn. She is a CSU graduate and was a private specialty practice owner in Fort Collins, Colorado, and her husband and co-founder, Dr. Phillip Steyn. He was a radiology professor at CSU for 20 years, founder and chief radiologist of Antec Imaging Services. Both Heather and Phillip traveled to Ecuador, and after witnessing the immense need for access to veterinary care, they left the US to open an animal hospital in Ecuador and start a nonprofit focused on education and high-quality care for animals, owned and unowned. Please join me in welcoming Heather and Phillip.
Hi, everyone. I think everyone kind of that knows us knows what we decided to do, but we're excited to be able to show you what we've created here and tell you more about our externship program, and we'll have time for questions and answers and some interactive talk. I'm upstairs right now and on the floor of the veterinary hospital, and they're actually getting ready to induce a surgery that this is actually an owned animal who's going in for a sterilization. And this is our technician, Paul. Hi. So can you guys say hi? Gabrielle. Hi. Hello. And our surgery suite, which is fully equipped with gas anesthesia, oxygen concentrators, warming pads, everything we would expect to see in a North American hospital to be able to do surgery. There's Dr. Steffi. She's going to be doing this neuter. And a little view of our hospitalization wards for our kitties and our dogs. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the quality of cages and equipment down here that we would have in the United States. So you can see we have some damage, which is because of the quality of the cages, but we're working on building a new hospital that will have better quality cages and equipment. Just a little view of our backyard and our environment here right behind us. You can see there's some roosters and pigs and dogs, and this is what it looks like in Ecuador. So we'd love to tell you about some of the programs and who we serve at Amici Cannis. Our first line of duty when we started the hospital was to be able to take control of the street dog problem that we had. And there were about 500 to 600 dogs roaming the streets, and we started a TNR program and started treating those animals for all kinds of diseases, vaccinating, deworming them, and claiming those street dogs as our own community dogs. They have been adopted as community dogs, and they live a really good quality of life out on the streets. We have been censusing those dogs twice a year since 2016, and we're down to less than 200 stable, healthy, happy community dogs, and it's been a successful program. So part of what our students get to do when they're here is they participate in large-scale sterilization, which is our street dogs, which are indigenous community dogs. We have quite a few surgeries that come through every day, and we have the capacity to do over 50 per day in the hospital. So on a typical day, it's 10 to 15. And then on a campaign day, we're doing 50 plus. And start at about 9 in the morning and the dogs go home at about 2 in the afternoon. So I would say it's rapid fire, fast processing. But all the dogs get sterilized and cleaned up. They get their nails trimmed, vaccinated, dewormed. And if we find any disease on those dogs, we treat it at the same time. So we're providing access to veterinary care for anything that they need. We see TVT, we see poisonings, we see trauma, a lot of stuff that we didn't see in Colorado and didn't have a lot of exposure for in Colorado, we get to experience here. So the students get to play with the ultrasound, with radiographs. Phillip actually reads all the radiographs for the hospital and provides really good reports, and they get some radiology training. We have a full laboratory that we get to do diagnostics in, and they just get a lot of hands-on immersion. Like, that's our goal with our student program. Other programs that we have are we do work with the indigenous communities that are underserved and impoverished that surround our town. And we go into the communities, we meet with the people, develop relationship with them, have a cultural experience with the students, getting to know what it's like to work in underserved areas, and then educating the owners about the need for caring for their animals, bringing them back to the hospital and providing them with the care that they need. So that's another great immersion experience for the students.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Heather, let me take you back to something that you said, which I think is one of the most amazing things about Amici Cannis, and that's when you arrived in Ecuador, more specific, the city of Cotacachi, what you saw in terms of the situation for the street animals at that point. Tell us very briefly how you've seen that changed and how you've measured that since we started to today.
Yeah, it was very shocking, the amount of animals that were roaming the streets. And when Phillip and I asked what existed to help with the overpopulation of the dogs and the free roaming animals, we were told there was no shelter, there was no animal control, there was no humane society. And the only program that existed was to do an eradication program, poisoning the street dogs once a quarter, once every 4 months or so, which we were, of course, horrified by. So our goal originally with Amici Cannis was to be able to get a hold of this program and do a TNR, trap, neuter, release, sterilization program, and bring those animals in and sterilize them and treat them and reduce the numbers, some with adoption, some with natural attrition, but to truly control how those dogs were on the street. And what we found, and what's been so amazing, is that now that there's not an overpopulation of community dogs, the community itself accepts those dogs as part of the community. They look out for them. There's water bowls out. Local tiendas and restaurants and mercados help feed the dogs, as do we. We patrol and check those dogs on a daily basis. We have a technician who goes out and checks on everybody. If somebody's sick or injured, they get brought in and cared for. And we see a very healthy, happy population of dogs. We measure that with our twice annual census. So we have a walking census program that's run by volunteers. Twice a year we go out and we walk the exact same map and count the dogs, and we measure the body condition score, how many are intact, if there's puppies on the street, pregnant females. And it's been amazing to not just see the numbers come down to less than 200, but our average body condition score is 3.5. We very rarely see a lactating female, and there's almost no puppies on the street, which means that we really do have a handle on the community dog program. And now it's about maintaining that program and capturing any new dogs that come into the area. These dogs come into the area from the surrounding poor communities that don't have access to veterinary services, and they'll wander into town looking for food or resources in town. So our goal now is to get to high-level sterilization in the communities that surround us to prevent the feeder dogs from coming into our street program in the hospital. That's one of our street dogs here who is staying in the hospital for care. I'm going to turn my camera around so you guys can see our doggies in the yard. and some with e-collars. These guys are being treated for skin disease, or they're recovering from surgery until they're healthy enough to be able to go back out to the community. We've got one complainer in a kennel over there. So yeah, that's our street dog program.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, it's amazing. I mean, when you think about the effort that Amici Cannis has put to control the population, you think of a big team of people. Can you tell us briefly who works at Amici Cannis? Like, what's your team like? How are you able to do the survey?
Yeah. So one, we have a group of volunteers that really help us with the survey, and we have a few volunteers in the clinic that help us with post-op recovery. There, we have a retired nurse and a retired veterinary technician who volunteer that are wonderful people. But our core team is 5 Ecuadorian veterinarians, all young women that we're super excited to be able to give the opportunity to work in the hospital and mentor and grow. They're very driven and absolutely love what they do. And it is a unique opportunity because we're the only hospital like this in our province. We have a hospital manager who is absolutely amazing, Guillermo, an administrator, and then 7 support technicians. And all of our technicians, except for one, has been hand trained by us because there wasn't really a veterinary technical school here, but they're very talented and they're very good at what they do. And we have one technician who was the first grad to the new veterinary technical school in Ecuador, and he is fantastic. So we're really proud of our team and the skills that they have and the level that we practice. It's very North American style care with North American style equipment and North American style expectations of quality care.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just put on the chat for all of you that missed it. Claire is actually with us in Cotacachi. Claire, this is your second turn in Cotacachi in 1 year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and why you decided to go back the same season that you had already been there? Just give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first came to Ecuador. It was actually this trip, this program, Amici Cannis, had been on my radar for actually a number of years. I had heard about it my second year, and it was always something that I was interested in. It was spoken very highly of at Tufts. And so it has a very good reputation. This organization is very well known. And I thought it would be very fitting I have a specialty postgraduate certificate in international medicine. And so I really wanted to get some experience in small animal medicine in an international setting. When I came here the first time, I was truly blown away by the level of care that is provided to these animals in the circumstances where we are. And so being able to provide these resources, being able to provide, full anesthesia monitoring during surgery, being able to get medications here that I don't even know how they get here. It's amazing. And I got so much hands-on experience. I did more surgery than I ever thought I was going to. I had the incredible mentorship of a criticalist who flew down with me, who's an alumni from Tufts. And I had such a phenomenal time, bonded with this group so much, made so many friends, and really felt like I established a community here. And so when I was invited back in the same season, I said, absolutely, I will make the time, and was incredibly honored to be able to come back here. And it has been such a joy to be able to reconnect with this place and these people and these animals in this community.
Well, I know that I speak for everyone at Amici Cannis that we're so excited to have you. You really made a mark. And I haven't met you because I'm in the US. I'm the only one in the US, but I know from everyone in Ecuador that everyone was super excited to have Claire back. And that leads me to everyone being super excited to have Dr. Marian back on the second turn. You've been such a big supporter of ours and such a great advocate, and you're such a voice. Everything that we want to do, if we want to put out a quote about this program, we always go to you because you've been such an amazing supporter. So if you could share with us your experience with Amici Cannis, what made you fall in love with this program and want to go back?
Yes, of course. So I originally went to Ecuador to work with Amici Cannis 2 years ago. One of my good friends and colleagues from vet school was one of the doctors who started the collaboration with Tufts and Amici Cannis. And I had just been kind of talking to her about, I felt like I wanted to do more good in the world, as an example to my daughters. And, just being a small animal vet just didn't feel like enough. I didn't feel fulfilled. And so she encouraged me to look into this program and to go. And, I love to travel and I love learning about new cultures and I also love to teach. And so this was perfect. And I went there and I fell in love with the country, the people, the team at Amici Cannis, the facilities there, the town of Cotacachi. Everything was just amazing. And I really enjoyed my experience. I made some, relationships with some of the staff there that I kept in touch with all year. And then I, was asked if I would go back as a mentor, and my answer is 100% yes. So
That's wonderful. We're very excited to have you again. And Heather, I'm going back to you. I think it would be really interesting to get your perspective on how the externship program started.
Yeah, we were really lucky to have met Dr. Nicholas Frank, who used to be at Tufts University, and his wife, Geraldine, who's a small animal practitioner, an amazing family who has traveled the world and spent their family vacations doing giving back veterinary experiences. And they landed in Cotacachi and we became great friends. But Dr. Frank immediately recognized that the experience that they had here would be valuable for his veterinary students at Tufts University. So he partnered with Dr. Katie Holmes at Tufts to create this program where the students could come for 2-week externships as part of their fourth year curriculum. And we started the program in 2017, and it's been a huge success. It's an absolutely wonderful program for Amici Cannis, not just because we have extra hands and bright, fresh minds, but the students bring and the alumni bring skills and knowledge that they get to share with our team, as well as the students being able to get something out of the program and leaving with, like Claire said, a great experience. So we love the collaboration, and we love that it always pushes us to stay at best quality medicine levels and bring new ideas. And the Tufts students are very helpful that they actually are the ones who bring our magical supplies and medications that we need down here. While they're traveling, they bring us a bag of supplies, and we're so grateful for that. They may not understand it until they arrive, but when they get here, they're like, now I know why this was so important. But we've been honored to be able to extend this program beyond Tufts University. We've had students from Cornell. 2 of our attendees today are on their way down here from Auburn University in a couple weeks. We've had students from Ontario Veterinary College. It's been really rewarding to reach out and invite students from other locations and have the students collaborate with each other as well as collaborating with us.
Thank you. I had a hard time here unmuting myself. I think Dr. Marian, we would love to hear from you. Like, since you are now a medical practitioner here in the US, it would be wonderful to hear from you how this experience in Ecuador shaped who you are and how you managed your medical practice here. Has anything changed after you had the experience in Ecuador, or have you done anything differently?
Absolutely. I mean, just going there has, changed how I view veterinary medicine. And, you definitely feel like you can, so much can be done with so little. And there's definitely, a ripple effect that I feel when I'm down there. I teach procedures to these vet students as well as, the Ecuadorian doctors. And then, they do these procedures and then they become proficient at them. And then they can do those on countless pets and then also teach those skills to other doctors and so forth. So it's a very, rewarding experience there. And then when I came back to the US after my first trip, I actually went and sought out an opportunity to work at a local humane society so that not only could I get better at my surgical skills so that I could teach better, but also to help with, the pets in need in my own community. And then doing that has, kind of opened me up to this network of people here who have dedicated their lives to helping animals. And I actually started volunteering at a different shelter that does pre-adoption vaccines and exams that use the spay and neuter clinic I volunteer at. Because I became involved with these people, and all of these animals are being helped, and it was all sparked by my trip to Amici Cannis. So it's been pretty amazing to see.
Yes, and you touched on a very interesting point. It's kind of a hot topic here in the US right now, which I'm glad we've got there, right? We've gotten to the point of understanding that the need for access to care within the US. And I don't want to compare, there's no comparison, but if you could tell us a little bit of what you see the differences between the need for access to care here and in places like Ecuador.
Absolutely. I mean, we are so lucky here in the US. It has made me realize that, we have a lot of access to veterinary care, even as, low cost, low income places. The spay neuter clinic I work at, will spay or neuter anyone's pets for low cost because they do it at such a volume and they're so good at it, and with very high quality. And I think that's very valuable for the community. And even as a general practitioner, working there, I see how good of care these pets are getting. And I have no problem recommending to some of my own clients that, if they really are struggling to pay for care, I would rather their pets get spayed and neutered than, make that money myself. And so I do recommend that for them as well. And, in Ecuador, they don't have the same access to care that we do. Not everyone there, almost no one there has a car. In the indigenous communities, not only do they not have the ability to get there, but they don't know that care exists for their pets. And so part of my experience there has been going out into the communities to teach the indigenous people about, what we can do for their pets and why we should do it. And then they want that, and then we help them get it. And it's a really, rewarding experience.
Thank you. Yes. And Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit about our efforts as Amici Cannis to go out into the communities and provide access to care to, as Marian was saying, people who don't know that access or veterinary services even exist.
Yeah, they don't even know that they are missing out on something, let alone having access to it. So we do a couple things to try to educate about veterinary care and animal care in general. We have a children's program, which is an amazing education program that we educate 7 to 11-year-olds in the schools as part of the Ministry of Education's accepted program on the 5 freedoms of animal welfare and the need for veterinary care services and being kind to animals. It's a very impactful program. Then that information gets taken home from the kids to their families in the indigenous communities. We also do education programs out in the indigenous communities. We have community-wide meetings where we go in and we talk about what needs to be done with the animals and why it's important to feed, why it's important to sterilize, why it's important to vaccinate. I mean, really basic things that we take for granted in North America. We're doing the basic education here on the ground. We then go into those communities where we've done the education and we do door-to-door censuses about how many animals are in the community that need to be sterilized. And then we start doing sterilization campaigns week after week after week in the same community until we get to a sterilization rate of 85%. At the exact same time, we're vaccinating, we're deworming, we're meeting with the owners, we're developing relationships with them. We're treating other illnesses that these animals present with. We don't just stop with providing basic services. We treat these patients as our best clients and we give them best care. So whatever they need, we're going to provide it for them at the same time and build a bridge with the owners to have them keep coming back to the clinic, bringing the animal back to us for care. One by one, we're educating these families on what's available and providing access to it for them.
Yes, thank you, Heather. And I think Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that when the first time you were there, and I don't know if you've had that opportunity the second time around, but you went out into the communities with a team early in the morning when we went to collect some of the dogs that were coming back to the hospital for spay, neuter, and preventive care, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience doing that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did it a couple of times actually. I had quite a few opportunities to both pick the dogs up in the morning and also drop them off in the afternoon. That was a really powerful experience because it allowed me to, one, kind of see the conditions in which these dogs are living, and kind of see the population dynamics. And there's, puppies and kittens all over the place. And, dogs have musculoskeletal problems, they have fractures, they have skin issues, they have this, there's all these other conditions that are going on as well. So just seeing how prevalent those are in those communities, and then having conversations with individual community members. I mean, I don't speak great Spanish, but I think I can kind of get by in my broken Spanish, to kind of just have conversations with them about their kind of feelings about this. And one of the things I noticed that was incredibly powerful was dropping the dogs off in the afternoon and returning them home to their families. Their families were so grateful. And they were always so excited to be reunited with their animals and thought that this program was really amazing. And there was a really profound connection that I felt there in being able to provide this service and then bring the animals back to them and reconnect with those community members again. I think that was probably my favorite part.
You touched upon a very interesting subject. I feel like I work in an international organization for many years, and we received emails from people that had just returned from a country such as Ecuador, and they would say, well, there's so many animals, people there don't care about the animals. What can we do? What would you say to that after the experience that you had?
I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that almost everyone that I have interacted with has had a very deep care for animals. They just don't know the resources that exist, or they don't have access to them, or they can't get access to them even if they want to. Like we said before, a lot of people don't have cars. A lot of people aren't able to leave their communities. A lot of these communities don't have paved roads. There's not a lot of infrastructure. And so I think it is very integral that we are going to them to be able to provide the service, to make that bridge to increase the access. And so it is not at all that they do not care. And I feel that care and that gratitude when we return their animals to them at the end of the day.
And we can't forget that a lot of these families, they don't have running water in their houses. They're living on dirt. They don't have access to medical care for themselves, let alone sufficient food. I mean, the basic salary in this country is $460 a month, and that will support a family of 6, 8 people. And they might have 7 or 8 animals that they love, but don't have the resources to take care of, and just don't know any better on how to stop them from reproducing or taking care of them. It's such a different world that we're in here.
Yes, and you all bring an interesting point. So I would like to go back to Dr. Marian and Claire. Maybe we can start with Dr. Marian. For the students and the veterinarians here in the public, like, what do you see in Ecuador that you almost don't see here in the US anymore?
So two of the, some diseases that we see there that we don't really see in the US, transmissible venereal tumors is one of the big ones that, we learn about in school, and we, kind of touch on how to treat it, but I had never seen it until I got there. And that was a really interesting experience. And, I'm not sure if in the US we just don't have the large amount of street dogs like they do there, or more of our pets are spayed and neutered. But yeah, that was an interesting one. And also distemper. Here in the US, that's one of the core vaccines that a lot of our pets get. And, any pet that goes through the shelter or, foster system gets vaccinated for that. And so it's not a disease commonly seen here, but they do see it there fairly frequently. And also one of the things that I see there that I don't see very frequently here in the US is malnutrition and very, very thin dogs. Here in the US, one of the major epidemics is obesity. And so that's also a little bit different in regards to medical care.
And I guess when you guys go to, or you've been there twice, and Claire has been there twice, and every time that you go to our hospital, you have different cases. So I want to touch upon one case that I know, Dr. Marian, you featured on your fundraiser for Amici Cannis. That was a sad case for the animal, but it was a great opportunity for you. It was a teaching moment for you. not only for the Tufts students that were with you, but also for our team. And it was the cat, right? If you could tell us a little bit about that experience as, just a training experience.
Yeah, so we had a little kitten. I think her name was Chiquita. She was very, very cute, but very painful and uncomfortable. Her eye had been ruptured from some injury that, the owner wasn't sure about. Who knows if she got into a fight or fell off of something. So she was a little, what we would call spicy, because she was so uncomfortable. And so I was able to, show the students and talk them through, removing her eye, something called an enucleation, which in this case was really the only option for this kitten. And, they were able to do it. And after she recovered from surgery and woke up, she was so much more sweet and happy, because we had been able to, help her with that eye. And now I'm confident that, the students I was with and the Ecuadorian doctors who are watching, we'll be able to do this procedure again for other pets that have the same issue. And, again, ripple effect, countless more pets will be able to be helped. Hopefully, because we were able to see that case and help that kitten.
Yeah, that was very sad for me to see, but it was so exciting to know that you guys could provide relief to this cat. It must be super painful, so I'm glad you were there.
Yeah.
And Claire, you probably, again, it's the same thing, right? You go to Ecuador for a couple of weeks at a time and surprise, who knows what you're going to get. So was there like a case that really spoke to you or that you learned a lot from?
Yeah, there's a dog in the hospital right now, actually, whose name is Pascal. Um, and I think Heather's gonna show you him right now. He's just hanging out in his kennel. He's a very cute dog, but he came to us about 4 or 5 days ago for severe discomfort in his abdomen and vomiting. There he is. He's very cute, and he looks so much better than he did 5 days ago. Very under the weather because he had eaten what we think is either a rope toy or a pair of jeans. And gotten what's called a linear foreign body, which happens when you have one very long, thin item that causes the intestines to bunch up. It can be very severe and is really an acute emergency, and it's a surgical emergency. The owner had very significantly limited funds, but we were able to make it work for him, for this dog to go to surgery urgently that day. We kind of moved around our surgery schedule, got him on the table, got that material out of him. And over the next 3 days or so, he has been able to recover. His owner has visited him at least 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, this owner is amazing. He is so dedicated to this dog. He just doesn't have a ton of financial resources to pour, thousands of dollars into this dog, but he loves this dog. And so he honestly, after surgery, we were a little bit worried about him given how sick he was when he came in, but he looks fantastic right now. He's eating, he's drinking water, he's doing great. He looks really bright. So I think he'll be able to go home really soon. So that was a really happy story.
And I'm glad you brought up this story because I saw the x-rays and I would like for Heather to tell us a little bit about what goes into these diagnoses when we get one of these dogs in. Like, it's amazing to me. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm a program director, an implementer, but I have seen these cases develop in front of me, and I'm amazed by how much care and time goes into these. So if you can tell us a little bit about that, Heather.
Sure. Because we treat all diseases and we don't just do sterilization, we treat these patients like we would have in the United States. So they get a complete exam. In this case, it was identified that the dog was vomiting and had abdominal pain. So had complete laboratory work, had a full set of abdominal radiographs, which were sent to Phillip and I, and Phillip reads all the radiographs and I kind of counsel on the cases. We've been doing that team approach for our entire career. And we're in the background coaching the doctors and giving them advice and next steps and helping them develop their assessments and their treatment plans. So this dog had radiographs that Phillip recommended surgery immediately. I think they were in surgery in a couple of hours. Abdominal Explore had multiple enterotomies to remove this foreign material, and the dog's been hospitalized for a couple of days, getting all of the pain medication and treatment and critical care that it needs since the surgery. So quite a bit of resources go into each individual animal.
It's very important for us. Sorry, it's very important for us to make sure that the dogs and the cats get the best level possible medical care. I was in practice. I had my own practice in South Africa, and then I was a professor at CSU for a long time, and then the chief radiologist at Antec. And Heather is Heather, so everything has to be done just right. And we expect that the patients here to get the same treatment that we would want our dogs or cats to receive. And it's taken some time. It's been a long road, but we're almost there.
I'd love to talk a minute about our facility and our resources here. We're very, very proud of the fact that our nonprofit is a self-sustainable nonprofit. Our hospital's operating expenses are covered by the work that we do, which was part of our initial goal. So we only have to fundraise for the programs that we put on, the free work that we do for the communities, the sterilization campaigns. But our hospital is run like a business in the United States that is fully functional without having to ask for dollars for the hospital. But we are in desperate need of a new facility. What you guys are looking at is 2 apartments in an apartment complex that are on top of each other, and we have to travel 3 flights of stairs with dogs in our arms to get to radiology. And our surgical suite, which is pretty small, we can cram 4 tables in there, but we really need a lot more space to do the volume of the work that we're doing. With all the sterilizations I told you, we're doing that with 1 surgical suite, 1 treatment table, and our entire team. And we have the capacity with our team to be able to double that amount if we actually have the space. We have the capacity to have a lot more students if we just have more space. So we are currently on the path of a capital fundraising campaign to build our own hospital and get out of these rented apartments and be able to put in not just a state-of-the-art North American style hospital that's our own building with all of its equipment, but we're putting in a 2nd floor that is a student residence and dormitory that will have the ability to house 6 students at a time with living room space and a large common kitchen and kind of a play area, a study area, and private bedrooms with shared bathrooms to be able to stay at the hospital and be involved in the work that we're doing instead of having to stay at an Airbnb, which is not terrible here. Our Airbnbs are absolutely beautiful, and our town is a gorgeous little walkable town, so everything's within a 10-minute walking distance. But we'd like to be able to have the capacity for the students to stay with us instead of having to pay to stay in town and connect them with the work that we're doing.
Yes, that's a great point, Heather, thank you. And I wanted to go back and tell the students a little bit about when you come to Amici Cannis. Of course, you're going to have a lot of experience in surgery. We do, as Heather was explaining before, we do manage the population of both street and street dogs and cats. And so you'll have a lot of experience in surgery. But we also are an emergency hospital and we're working 24/7. So you get all sorts of other cases. So really the experience that you get while being there. I don't know if any of you would like to talk about that a little bit, but it's right. I don't know, Claire, if any of your experiences, that the surgeries that you've been able to do or the cases that you have seen is.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I think that while you get a lot of experience here doing spay neuter, I think you also see a lot of other things. And so something that I have seen a lot here that I am not used to seeing quite as much in the US is really severe traumas. We see a lot of hit by car animals, particularly dogs. And so you'll have animals that come in that have multiple limb fractures. They will have, air in their chest. They'll have any variety of major abdominal or chest or bone trauma that we then have to deal with. So that has been really interesting for me. The other thing as well is in the United States in general practice, a lot of the times you are spaying and neutering kind of young, healthy dogs. Here, you're spay neutering dogs that are potentially pregnant, that have uterine infections, that have a variety of different pathologies going on that make those surgeries significantly more challenging and a really good learning experience because they teach you how to do surgery in really abnormal situations. And that for me has probably been the best learning experience to prepare me for practice in the future.
Claire, that is a great point, and I don't know, Marian, if you'd like to speak more to that. I think that one of the issues that we see, right, Heather, is that people we spay a lot of the animals from underserved communities that are also people that live in extreme poverty, and so it's very difficult to bring in the animal and do all the testing that we would do here in the U.S., right, Dr. Marian? You can probably speak about that before the surgery to make sure that the animal is healthy. Tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, so it is as Claire was saying, a really good experience for these students coming from, Tufts University hospital that, does gold standard care for every patient. Because I mean, honestly, even in the rest of the US, it's not like that. In practice, I do have to know how to, present the gold standard and what should be done for every case, but learn how to work with owners about how we can work within their financial budget to give their pet the best care possible. And, this is, an extreme situation, where that's also the case, the owners have a lot less. So, it's a really good learning experience to, figure out how we can do the most with the least. And so, it is a very, again, good experience for them leaving school. And, speaking to your, comments also about, seeing different kinds of cases, when I was there, I helped and saw a lot of different emergencies. And I even learned how to aspirate a mediastinal chest mass when I was there. So even I learned a lot of things there, and it's a really good experience for everyone involved.
I think I've always had the mentality in practice that like we should be able to do whatever needs to be done for that animal in that moment, which is not necessarily the mentality that a lot of doctors have in the US now. Like you have to refer everything, you have to have a specialist for everything, and that's just not possible here. So I thrive in this environment, and I try to inspire my doctors to be able to have the confidence to be able to do whatever's necessary for that animal. So if it's tapping a chest, if it's amputating a leg, it doesn't matter. But doing a blood transfusion, it doesn't matter what it is. We're going to do the best that we can to try to help that animal in that moment. So the students get a lot more exposure to things that they would not see in your average general practice in the United States. You just have to see it as it comes in, and you have to take care of it. And you don't really have the option to say, oh, who's the closest specialty hospital and who can I refer this to? You actually just have to take care of it. So it's good. It teaches the students to think on their feet. They gain confidence about being able to be empowered to do more procedures and have more confidence in their own hands and their own ability.
Yes, and that brings me to another question for you, Heather. So thinking about all the work that Amici Cannis does and how our hospital is, it's fairly new. What would happen, or what was it like before Amici Cannis was there, and what would happen if we weren't there?
It was pretty awful before we were here. I mean, the reason we built the hospital is because Phillip and I tried to arrange for some sterilization campaigns without a hospital, and it was a really terrible experience. We watched dogs die under anesthesia. We watched terrible aseptic technique being done, no pain management. It was not acceptable. We felt like we were doing more harm than good. So before we were here, there really wasn't anything. And if we were not here, I don't know. I don't know what it would be like in this town. I probably wouldn't want to live here.
Yeah. I mean, I do know, again, and I work with Amici Cannis from Maryland in the US, and I get these messages on Facebook that says this dog has just been hit by a bus and it's Sunday at 9 o'clock at night. And so who has to tend to those animals, right? Like if we weren't there, and what do we do? Dr. Heather, like tell us an example like that.
Well, our doctors, we have a doctor on call for all emergencies and a technical staff on call for all emergencies. And we would just go and actually pick that animal up. If whoever witnessed it wasn't able to bring it to us, we would go get it. We have our own mobile van unit, and we service the entire community with that. We answer distress calls like an animal control would, and we bring them to the hospital and we treat them. And we treat a ton of trauma. I mean, we do orthopedic repairs, we do external fixators. We just handle a ton of trauma and do everything we can for every animal that we're presented with.
Do we get any support from the municipality or from government there?
No, not at all. We're a private foundation. We do agreements with the municipality to do sterilization campaigns for them every year, but we actually have to fundraise to be able to fund those. And all of the work that we do is with private funding.
Yeah. Well, I would like for maybe Dr. Marian and Claire to share if you, for any alumni, let's start with you, Dr. Marian, any alumni that are here today or that will watch this recording that are interested in coming to Ecuador, what would you say to them, or what would you recommend, or what's, your number one, you've got to go see this in Ecuador, or something that you could share with them?
Of course. Well, I never had the opportunity to go as a student. It wasn't available, but I would highly recommend it. I remember being a brand new doctor, coming out of school, only having done a few surgeries on my own and figuring out things as I went. And as a mentor, I try really hard to, bring all 10 years of my experiences together and teach them, the mistakes I've made, the things that made me nervous at first, the things I wish I had known, and kind of condense it down for them to give them, as much knowledge and experience as they can. And in addition to the surgical experiences, they get to experience the low-cost clinic. And again, as I mentioned earlier, working with people that have, little resources, how to give their pet the best care possible, because the gold standard practice isn't, often possible, even here in the US. And also it is a very, interesting experience, the, fun cultural experience. There were hikes that we went on. We went on an adventure and took the bus into another city on our own, and it was 40 cents to take the bus. And we made it to Otavalo and made it to the market and made it to Condor Park. Saw some pretty amazing birds and made it home. And the food here is really amazing. And yeah, I just, I love the little city. I went on runs every morning, both by myself. I felt comfortable, and also with a member of the staff at Amici Cannis. She showed me some of the trails in the back of the city, and where some of the greatest views are. And I love it. So highly recommend it.
Thank you, Dr. Marian. How about you, Claire? What would you tell students that are interested in coming to Ecuador?
I think that my advice to come down here would be to say yes to everything. If someone offers to have you do a procedure that you've never done before and you're a little bit scared to do it, like, say yes to that. If someone asks you if you want to go out into the community and be involved in picking up dogs for spay neuters, say yes to that. If somebody invites you out to dinner from the staff who maybe you haven't chatted with all that much but wants to get to know you, like, say yes to that too. If you want to go hike the lagoon and someone invites you, say you want to go by yourself, like, say yes to that. And I think that there are just so many opportunities here that it's really good to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone, both medically and personally. And I think that you will have amazing results and amazing gains, both as a future doctor and as a person, if you just go into it with the mindset that you are going to say yes and be open to every single experience that is offered to you.
That's a beautiful sentence, Claire. Thank you for sharing that. We would hope that everybody has that kind of experience here. I think it's so important for people to realize that it's really safe where we are, and it doesn't matter what you hear in the US news. We're in a protected, beautiful high mountain village that is perfectly safe. There's no danger here at all. So I really appreciate you guys expressing that.
Yeah, very good point, Heather. Thank you. I would like to open the floor to some questions, giving the time. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of the questions from the chat, and we can go ahead and respond to those. So I'm going to start, and Andrea, if you can help me monitor the chat, but I think
Eliane,
sorry, go ahead.
Eliane, what kind of capacity do you have for expanding the internship program while maintaining the quality of it? What's your sense?
Okay. Great question. We believe we have a lot of capacity to expand our student program. We've been doing this for so many years. Our real limitation is just space. We have had as many as probably 8 students here at a time that did not feel that their experience was blunted or overshared. Everybody seems to get along really well, and the students help each other as well as help the team. And I think our capacity for growing the student program is very high.
Thank you, Heather. Andrea, what's the next question?
The next question is, can you talk more about how you juggle care for issues that you find while spaying nurturing street dogs? Is it few enough disease now that you have a handle on the number and condition of dogs in the community, that you can treat them with disease injuries without slowing down the volume of spay and neuter?
Yeah, we already have successfully done that. We have the capacity and the ability, and we do already treat other diseases besides spay and neuter. That is part of our program.
Wonderful.
The last question for Elaine is, do the students stay with families or together? Having done a semester abroad in Mexico, I can see advantages in both.
So I'll go ahead and answer that. We have some noise coming from, I think
Yeah.
it's Andrea, yeah.
I think I could help with this question.
Go ahead.
We help us to find the right places for the students. We rent a condo for the alumni and the students. You can hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we just decided to, well, we work with the owners of this condo, and these condos are very comfortable. They have separate bedrooms, they have drying washers, they have everything inside of the condo, and it's very, I think it's a kind of cheaper price because you could split if you share with another student on the condo. But if we have some issues about it, we just decided to watch another condo to help to the students to be in a safe place with everything that they need around.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah.
I see a couple questions that I can answer as well. You don't have to be proficient in Spanish. About half of our team is fluent in English, but it's really fun if you learn some Spanish and you know some Spanish to practice it. The team's very open to whatever level of Spanish, and they're helpful and warm, so you don't be afraid to practice speaking Spanish in the clinic.
Oh, we have another question here. Is James said, will you please do a brief review of who is eligible for the externship program?
Heather, do you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. Right now, our SET program is through Tufts University, and you actually go through Dr. Katie Holmes and Chad, the program coordinator, to be able to be eligible. So that's actually determined at the level of the university. So I would encourage Tufts students to reach out to Dr. Holmes about the program. If it's universities outside of Tufts, then reaching out to us directly about your proposed externship, and we can walk you through the process.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question here. How many pets do you treat each day? Do you ever have to euthanize animals?
Yeah, good question. The number of patients that we see per day probably ranges from 25 to 60, depending on the day. So we have a pretty high caseload. Euthanasias happen. Euthanasia happen in all hospitals. When we have disease or illness that's untreatable, then we will make the right decision for the animal based on the quality of life of the animal. Our goal with our community dog program is to make sure that we are treating animals that are going to be able to survive on the streets, that they're going to have good quality of life on the streets. So if we have a street animal that will not be able to have good quality of life on the streets, then we might make the decision for euthanasia. but it's rare and we work really hard to try to prevent that from happening. We do everything that we can for the animals.
We have a last question. It said, I guess the average household is not going to be able to house a student comfortable, like a major city in Mexico or something. I'd be the Airbnbs that be more comfortable with running water, etc., or if you build your own facility.
Yeah, I think we addressed that they're really nice, comfortable Airbnbs like you'd find anywhere in the United States with kitchens and private bedrooms and bathrooms. Our town is not poor. Our indigenous communities surrounding our town are poor.
And there's one more question that I'll take, Andrea. How many pets do you treat each day? And do you ever have to euthanize animals?
Yeah, we actually answered that question already.
Yeah. I think we already
Oh.
answered that question.
All right, sorry about that. I missed it.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
I
well-
just want to add an information. I know that Dr. Heather mentioned that we have an education program. For the last 12 months, we educate more than 1,600 students here. And now we are working for since 4 years to 12. So we are trying to expand this education program too, and also the externship program includes to show the students how it works, because this is a big impact that we are just looking for in 10 years after this program.
Thank you, Andrea. Heather, we are almost at 1 o'clock my time. Did Emerson, so you talked at one point that we have a beautiful van that was actually a donation from an international organization that goes out into the streets and does beautiful things. We can talk more about that, but I just wanted to see if they were back.
They have gotten back and they're bringing dogs in. So I'm going to go downstairs and show you, walking down the stairs, sorry, that they have arrived with dogs that were picked up from the street today. There's Emerson, Hola, Matias, Guillermo, Dr. Priscilla, and these dogs are being brought in that were gathered from the streets. Permiso. And here is our van that was donated for us, our mobile unit that goes out and picks up all the dogs. And Emerson is a star.
And Heather, did you have any of the Tufts students that went with Emerson?
They were all, I was showing them all to you up in surgery.
Okay,
They're all
they were
upstairs working in the background, doing surgeries, prepping dogs, and getting their surgical experience.
Wonderful. And these dogs are street dogs that are going to be set up for surgery today, right?
Yep, they're all going to get sterilized today, and when they recover, whether it be tomorrow or the next day, then they will be returned to the area that we picked them up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I think, did we get one more question, Andrea?
Yeah, Alex, I don't know if we have time to answer this, but it's
Well,
very short.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jane
Let's
is
take this.
asking that if we have any partnerships with Cuenca Pet Rescues, veterinary care organizations.
Yeah, it's a good question. The model that we've developed here is a model that we would like to see repeated in other locations. And part of my mentorship has been to work with a program down in Cuenca that's called FAWN, but they don't have a veterinary hospital and they're not doing sterilizations yet. They're working on developing their program, but I could look and see about other organizations in Cuenca, but I personally don't know them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather. Well, I love that Claire is showing us everything that is happening in the background. It's been a great addition. Dr. Marian, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest speaker today. Claire, it's been so wonderful to have you as a guest speaker. We're going to keep you there until everybody has to leave. because you're doing an amazing job at showing everything that is going on today. So we're super thankful for that. And everyone that could join us, thank you. If you have any questions, I think most of you must have my email. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and type it really quickly on the chat over here, just so you have it for any questions that you may have, or if you just want to, send us an email and say hello. We're also available on social media. Thank you so much again. And we hope to
Thank
see
you, everyone.
soon.
We appreciate you joining us.
Yes, thank you for letting me be a part of it. I'm very honored.
Love you, Marian.
Good to
Thank
see
you. Thank
Marian.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye, everyone.